Welcome to this podcast. Today I have with me Aarya Deb. Aarya is a good friend of mine and he is currently a PhD researcher in Mechanical Engineering Department of Purdue University. He has pursued his bachelor's from Villanova University in Pennsylvania States of United States, and he belongs to Tripura, India. And his research interests are aligned towards machine learning and deep learning and autonomous navigation, towards agricultural robotics. He has published several papers, several research articles in top tier conferences all around the world. So this amazing podcast and you're gonna love it. So here with us, Aarya, welcome to the show. And tell me more about how's your PhD journey going on right now in Purdue.
Hey Mahindra, I'm doing good. Thank you for having me on your podcast. PhD is going well. We just finished up one project 2 weeks back, so started another new project. So, it's a never-ending loop, keeps going. But other than that, it's going well.
How you manage your PhD time, dude? It's very difficult. You are taking some courses, doing projects, as well as doing workouts and all. How a PhD student manages in Purdue their lifestyle?
Yeah, for PhD student in Purdue, time management is very difficult because, especially in the first few years when you're taking classes and also doing full-time research. But for me, I feel like I say no to some events, like when my friends ask me, hey, you want to do this? I can't say yes to everything. So that's like one of the things I use. Like I strategically try to figure out which one I want to go to, which one I don't want to go. And that way I
I
manage
think
time.
in that time management, there'll be always yes to the free food, I believe.
There will be always yes to the free food for sure.
Yeah. That event, 5 to 6 event, where it was an Indian event where we had multiple samosas, four samosa in one go.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that
that
was
was a
good.
yeah. So let's talk more about your PhD research. I believe you are working in agricultural robotics, and what is particularly, I believe it's like IoT for AG, means like that is the terminology which I see all over in Purdue and on the Herrick website. So what is it's all about?
So IoT for Ag is a ERC, so Engineering Research Center
Hmm.
for the by NSF, funded by NSF,
Oh,
and it is collaborated by Penn, University of Pennsylvania, Purdue, University of Florida, and UC Merced, California Merced,
okay.
and it is geared towards introducing new technologies such as robotics, IoT, sensors, remote sensing, and data collection for modernizing agriculture. So like digital agriculture uh,
Okay.
to manage the growing population and increasing its food demands to meet those growing demands.
I think there is a lot of challenge these days related to the future food security, like recent Russia-Ukraine war, and there are other events happening, COVID-19, breakage of like supply chain and all. So where do you fit this research and how it can impact? I believe means like how robotics enters into the picture of when farmers were doing all the job. So that is the key which I wanted to ask.
Yeah, so the thing is, farmers are working still, but
Hmm.
there's not enough people who are like not enough farmers who are able to work. So
Hmm.
the workforce of farmers is going down. There's like something billion tons of like just strawberries, in
Hmm.
California and like all of US that is being wasted because there's not enough farmers to pick those berries. So stuff like that where just human help is not sufficient, robotics can come in, like autonomous berry picking is just one of the things that robots can do.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah, I believe farming is a kind of job which is more driven related to means like if you earn a profit, you can earn a profit once you sell your crop. And I believe that is much more affected by some of the factors like they are in like in India there are a huge amount of factor, a lot of suicide happens for the farmers and those loans and all. That may be the reason I believe. What could be the other reason why a lot of farmers are moving away from their farming to some other sectors?
Yeah, so it's a two different scenarios in countries like India
Hmm.
and like other countries like Europe
Hmm.
and US. So in
Hmm.
the US, farmers are not necessarily moving away
Hmm.
for profitability reason. They're
Hmm.
moving away because they just growing so fast, they can't. just make sure by having one job, like they don't have enough people like able to like hire more people to help with their farms. But if you look at India, farmers are getting low rates for their crops. They're
Hmm.
like unfair markets, which is not the case in the US. So
Okay.
I feel like that is the reason, two different kind of pictures in play in different countries.
If you see tech growth can be managed by incoming engineers and trained engineers from all over the world, how a farmer, how somebody want to be a farmer, they have to follow the legacy or there are some courses for that. That okay.
Look, the farming here in the US is a very different scenario. Like
Hmm.
here, if your dad is a farmer, in India, what happens is if you're coming from a farming heritage, right, you just
Hmm.
join the farm. If
Hmm.
family owns a lot of land, you just
Hmm.
automatically go into it. But
Hmm.
in the US, it's different because
Hmm.
people are studying agronomy, plant
Okay.
science,
Hmm.
ag engineering. Like Purdue has one of the best departments in
Yeah.
agriculture and
Agriculture.
biological engineering.
Hmm.
So yeah, here's a lot more studying, and then people know if that agriculture excites them, they will go in that field, study, and become a farmer. Or it can be their side job. It doesn't have to be their full-time job. They can be uh, farmer in the day and like teacher at night, whatever is the thing.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's amazing. And I think one of the biggest food supplier all over the world is United States. If you measure across different kind of crops, and the yield per acre or per hectare is much more like top five countries. In India, the yield per hectare is pretty low as compared to US. Maybe they are involved a lot of good technology. One of them could be like in future could be your technology. One point you highlighted is picking up the maybe fruits or veggies using robotics. How it works basically, how you design a robot to do all kind of these stuff. Is it autonomous or it is human involved in the loop? How the things work?
Yeah, so I'll give you an example of my research, what I am developing.
Hmm.
So for our robot, it's a ground robot. So it has
Hmm.
four wheels. It's very small,
Hmm.
like a 2 foot by 1 foot frame. It's
Hmm.
very short, low to the ground,
Hmm.
but it has an arm on its back. So
Okay.
what we do is I'm working on machine learning and computer vision. So using some of that techniques, we detect the leaves or any feature of interest, like for example, berry or a leaf. You detect that, and then you localize that gripper of the arm to like grab it. And then you have some other mechanism that can, cut the berry or pick it. So it's
Okay.
a computer vision problem in one aspect, and the
Hmm.
second aspect is a manipulation problem, how you grab it and then store it. So like the dynamics of arm and stuff.
And I believe that could be possible in US because when I was coming from Chicago to Indianapolis or to West Lafayette, they are big, very big farms in India. So what happens? The farms work differently. Due to their heritage, they become smaller, smaller in size. They could be
Yeah.
larger for farms, however, but I believe robotics and these kind of stuffs work perfectly in big farms because means like big farms means when the farm length is so huge, so robotics can show its real you know nature, its real behavior of autonomy. So yeah, you are correct that in that way having automation removes the human error also. There could be multiple human error in this loop. Like I believe if you are novice, if you don't know how to pick up fruits, okay, there could be a challenge like you will be wasting a lot of fruits and all. I believe, is it the case it can happen in that way?
Yeah, yeah, you're definitely right.
Hmm.
There's something called long-term autonomy, which is what we have to test for in the US
Hmm.
fields, where
Hmm.
your robot is going for hours and hours
Hmm.
and covering huge amount of land, right? So you have to worry
Hmm.
about, is your battery gonna hold up? Is
Hmm.
your algorithm robust enough to like not
Hmm.
hit something when it's going
Hmm.
too far? But that's something a challenge you won't have in India because smaller farms, as you said. So maybe you don't have to worry about changing battery packs or
Hmm.
running into other kind of issues like variability and stuff. So yeah,
Hmm.
both are challenges on
Hmm.
its own.
That's true. That's amazing. Apart from that, I believe I saw one of the startup in India. They were making a drone for pesticides. Having. I think that would be in US also. How to make this process faster and even what happens when human involved in pesticides and fertilizer, there'll be a loss of, they will, it won't be equitable along the farm. But when you have a robot doing the job, it's like it's much of more efficient, I believe.
Yeah, you're exactly right.
Hmm.
As a matter of fact,
Hmm.
last summer, I believe, I saw a demo on campus by a
Hmm.
company, like a startup company, like called Terra or something.
Okay.
They had a huge drone, had like six propellers, and it was like massive. Had a full tank of like pesticide, and
Hmm.
you just have to like plan the mission on your phone, and it
Yeah.
goes to that location and sprays, and
Oh.
then fully autonomously completes the mission. It's really cool.
Yeah, and I believe it's much more faster. And apart from that, one of the factor is when the weather is extreme. For example, there is extreme heat and the extreme cold, and you have to do this work. It will be much more accessible via robotics, I believe.
Yeah, absolutely. So
Hmm.
some of the researchers who are also students I work
Hmm.
with,
Hmm.
their job during the growing season, which is for corn in the
Hmm.
US, is from May to end of July, something like that. Uh,
Okay.
During the peak growing seasons, they have to go out in the sun, take leaf samples. So they cut the leaf and measure the leaf, measure the diameter of the plant, and
Hmm.
they're out, for 3 hours at a time every day. So we are trying to automate that with robotics. So once that is fully functional, hopefully this tedious task or boring task will be much more
Yeah.
streamlined and less
Hmm.
hectic.
I believe I have seen people in Purdue. Those who are researchers. They wear a hat, and they having a sunscreen in their hands and all these, on their face, and be ready with 2 gallons of water and going into
Yeah.
the farm. It's like preparing for some like apocalypse or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. Apart from that, what could robotics do apart from, as you mentioned, object localization and extracting out the resources? I believe not resources, but end product from the plants and trees. What could be other things? Like one work which you have mentioned recently highlighted is like plant disease detection. How that works?
Yeah, so one big major like aspect of growth in plants is, or the yield in plants is how much disease reduction you can do. So once the disease starts in a plant, it's not very easily detectable till like it's spread a lot. But when you catch it when it's spread already, then what's the point? You have to like get rid of those products. So our goal is to like using remote sensing and all those uh, algorithms we have. We are trying to detect diseases from an early stage so they don't spread.
Okay.
That way, we are trying to maximize the yield um, by catching those at early stages.
Yeah, that's true because I have seen like somewhere down the line if you see plants and when one leaf get brownish, it means it's losing its life or some or other way got disease or something like that. After some point of time, if you don't care about it, it will infect the entire plant and it may propagate this disease into another plant and there'll be a loss of entire productivity, entire yield of the farm. So in the initial stage, detection is a pretty good idea, I believe. And what are challenges related to that? What you feel like? Do you detect what are uh, all the locations at which these diseases can occur? They could be plants, it could be stem.
Yeah, so the thing that happens is it varies from crop to crop, right? So
Hmm.
corn crop might have a different symptom of disease, while a silk plant can have a different
Hmm.
symptom. So what some people do is they fly drones from the top down view. You get
Hmm.
a very nice image and high resolution image of the top, the canopy of the plants. But
Okay.
maybe for corn,
Hmm.
you don't have the disease signs at the top. The disease starts at the bottom. That's where our ground robot comes in because it's going from ground level and looking at
Oh.
up top,
Up. Yeah.
like up. So yeah, it's very interesting, like how different crops need different kind of assessment techniques. But yeah, usually nitrogen deficiency or any other kind of disease starts with browning in the leaves, then the leaf spreads to different parts, as you said earlier.
And one of the thing which I believe is the advantage of robotics is like, for example, cornfield. If you want to detect the these disease, does farmer have to crawl like an army person and it's like a training ground seeing like this, or is it like, because it's much more challenging with robots? You can access the non-accessible area pretty decently if you have multiple cameras, and because a small rover can go here and there. However, I don't believe a farmer can do this job much more efficiently. How it has evolved from, like, how do the farmer do that, and how the robotics can improve it.
Yeah, so how our project started back in like 2020 actually is Purdue has this big tractor-like thing called Phenorobot. So
Okay.
it's like massive. It's like 20 foot tall and has big wheels.
Hmm.
When it goes, it compacts the soil and it also crushes some of the plants.
Oh.
So there was, before we developed our robot, there was no anything on the market, any technology that could, go under and crawl under, like you said.
Hmm.
So farmers can't do that because, when the plants are taller than you, when a corn plant is fully developed, it's like 10 feet, 15 feet.
Hmm.
So crawling under there is very hard and you're gonna like, there's not enough physically space for you to fit in. So it's definitely a challenge. And as technology develops, like it's gonna get more convenient, but it's hard as a farmer to do that.
And apart from that, I believe the yield also depends upon how closer you are putting all the crops. As closer as they get, if you have seen those sugarcane farms, they are pretty dense. Means like if you go inside, you are like lost. It's like so dense, like you have to move like this, because I believe when I used to enter into such farm just to, thief out some of the sugar canes. So that I
Yeah.
felt that. So it's like much more, if you want to do a hide and seek over there, it's a very good place. But not, mobility is a issue. So robot can definitely help over there, I believe.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Robots have a GPS, right? So even if they're
Oh, yeah.
lost
Yeah.
in the middle of the maze, you can still find it
Yeah,
using GPS signal.
that's true. Apart from that, if there are challenges related to charging station, definitely you can have a charging station directly onto the farm itself, in the middle of, you know in the middle of the farm, or somewhere you can have the accessibility. And when robot can have its own intelligence, like when, like for example, five robots are operating, you can have a policy, you can have a plan. Okay, four of them right now it's at 50% charge, and one is going like 40%. How many should charge at this point of time, so that three will be available right now if two are charging? So making this policy to make it much more, I believe, maximum yield with minimum charging and all, this kind of problem is like very good to solve.
Yeah, that is a very good idea actually. Like
Hmm.
the
Hmm.
robots communicating their battery status with
Yeah.
other robots in the group. That is like a very good method to optimize that.
Hmm.
But primarily, what I think is
Hmm.
the bottleneck is the
Hmm.
drones. Their flight time is like, 20 minutes,
Yeah.
30 minutes max, and
Hmm.
even like 10 minutes with like payload.
Hmm.
But ground robots can typically go for like 2, 3 hours.
Hmm.
And with ground robots, you can just have a fresh battery pack, right? You just swap it, you're done.
Oh.
But with drones, you don't have that luxury. You have to like land them and, charge
Hmm.
or add the new
That's true.
battery. It's a
Hmm.
process.
Yeah.
But University of Pennsylvania is actually
Hmm.
developing a supercapacitor type battery. So yeah, we'll see how that project turns out.
Okay. And I believe one of the thing which can be done is like in army technology, surveillance and finding people in the forest. You are finding like this application called swarm robotics,
Hmm.
where if it is a very kind of very large farm, and like your drone's capability is like 5 minutes, 10 minutes of flight, you can have multiple drones and adjust. Have you seen those pictures? Means like bot labs. They make like when it is like Republic Day, they make that
Yeah,
that flag of India.
yeah, yeah.
So these kind of robots can also be used in a intelligent way to optimize the best possible way in which they can deliver their task, or either spraying or clicking pictures and all. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a true. Those
Hmm.
swarm robots, they look not only cool,
Hmm.
but they also like, do the
Yeah.
job in a very effective way, like
Hmm.
capture different angles, right? But
Hmm.
one more thing I want to point out
Hmm.
is also something also currently going on in our project. When you have drones, you're going too close to the canopy. If you want a up close picture of the leaf, the wash from the propellers makes the leaves, like
Yeah.
disturb and they like flop around. So we are trying to design a drone that has minimum wash, so you can go as close to the leaf as possible without having to worry about
Okay.
disturbing leaves in
Or
the
there
air.
could be a adjustable camera which can come out like with a
Yeah,
rope, click a picture, and
true.
come
Yeah.
out like this. Yeah, that would be much amazing. Yeah, those people who can see from farm, for far, they are seeing what this robot is doing. Like it's like doing, wires coming out and clicking the picture and
Yeah.
again going out. That is amazing. Apart from that, that is a very good research area to have disease protection because, and what you mentioned like wash, that is also a very amazing. Apart from that, there are some amazing discoveries going on around this area called robotics and how we can involve tech into robotics. One of them is like some of the people are making indoor farms, very big indoor farms, where robots, which could be manipulated, are doing a lot of jobs like spraying water to the plants and picking them up, and these things are also happening.
Oh yeah, that is actually a cool
Yeah,
thought process. Like if
yeah,
you're having your farms in indoor, it's much more controlled environment,
yeah,
so you don't have to deal with the harsh environment, and you
mm,
can control many variables.
yeah,
So like you can get the exact amount of crispiness in your leaves or something like that. You can
hmm,
probably also control the amount of light
hmm.
and characteristics of the plant. You can like engineer the plant to give you,
Yeah, that's true.
yeah.
That's amazing. One of the thing which I'm seeing a lot of companies or basically startups, they are only focusing on big indoor farms that are like with the help of limited number of people and having entire thing autonomous. So they are small rovers, they are manipulators, all of them doing certain kind of tasks. So one is picking up the product, and one is like having new, when some plant died, there is a life of that. There is one which is like having a new plant, you know putting over a new seed and properly watering it and putting pesticides. One is like watering it properly, and there are sensors on the soil also, like they are monitoring how the chemical constituents and the level of manure is in the plant, so that there will be no plant should die and they have maximum yield.
Yeah, that is true.
Hmm.
So the people who are looking at that data,
Hmm.
uh, it becomes then a data science
Hmm.
problem.
Oh yeah.
So you have soil moisture sensor, soil temperature, and I believe there's also something like a rainfall, which doesn't happen in the um, indoor farms, but for outdoor
Hmm.
farms of speaking, there's like all kind of sensors.
Yeah.
So you can optimize your conditions depending on the if there's enough rainfall or not. Then you
Hmm.
trigger your sprinklers,
Hmm.
using all that data, you can really leverage that. And as far as indoor farms, uh, so in industries, we have had robots for like decades, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Making cars.
Yeah.
So I feel like when we have farms moving into indoors, like a conveyor belt,
Hmm.
then we already know the experience from like the past 50 years, how robots work. So we can really optimize that
Hmm.
scenario. I think that'll
Hmm.
be really, really good thing in the future.
Yeah. I think tech will be having a huge amount of impact on agriculture sector because agriculture sector is so fundamental to our existence. So
Yeah.
there should be much more funding in that direction. There should be much more agency which should enter into that, so that there'll be more funding, there'll be more research, and we can able to have, because as the population is growing, the demand for the food is increasing, and we are putting a lot of pressure on the I believe a lot of pressure on the ground, and due
Soil.
to soil, due to which like soil is lacking nutrients, and with they are properly estimates, like there was a in Joe Rogan's podcast when Sadhguru came for this save soil thing,
Hmm.
and he was mentioning like sometime back in 1920, if you pick up a orange from a farm, and right now, so the nutritional capability right now, you have to eat 20 oranges to get the same amount of nutrients that you were doing in 1920s. So why it
Wow.
happened? It's like because soil upper what do you call it, upper soil is the upper crust, so
The
it's
topsoil.
losing, yeah, it's
Yeah.
losing its minerals, it's losing its some of the characters, losing its biodiversity. So biodiversity, bacteria and viruses, I believe bacteria and fungi plays a huge amount of role in the growth of a plant. And so what happens, and essentially it acts as a manure. So what happens, your fruits get more enriched with nutrients as compared to what's happening right now. So what we did was, we are continuously degrading the soil, quality, and we are putting more pressure on the soil again and again. So there is a proper planning. Previously what happens, so they used to grow one crop and leave the entire crop for the entire year, and then again, so it used to replenish itself, then again grow
Mm.
it. Right now it's like in one year a lot of people are putting five crops different ways, so soil is not getting a chance to be much more, I believe, have that organic content. Yeah.
Yeah, you mentioned a very good point actually, because robotics right now in agriculture, we are not focusing, not that I know
Hmm.
of like we are only focusing on plant disease detection and
Hmm.
like fertilization,
Hmm.
like how to spray the fertilizer and
Hmm.
stuff. But we are not really using robotics as of yet to
Hmm.
enrich the soil or give the soil back its nutrients. So that could be a very good avenue of like how we can detect when the robot should intervene, and like
Yeah.
maybe the robot will give us, or some AI models will like give the farmer an idea, hey, you should do this, plant now this, and then wait for like one season and then plant this one again
Yeah.
to maintain optimum nutrients in the soil. So maybe we can
Yeah.
leverage the data to think about our soil as well, and not
Yeah.
just the yield.
And apart from that, there are other stresses on the water. Say if previously, when you used to do farming, the water was much more pure. Right now, if you see the water quality used for irrigation, it's much more corrupted via some of the, I believe, pollutants in the rivers and all. So what is happening, that is also putting pressure, extra chemical, those dangerous sulfur kind of chemicals putting onto the soil. It is degrading the organic content of the soil is becoming much more acidic. So it's a
Yeah.
research, yeah, it's a research that is showing soil is becoming much more acidic. So it's very difficult for plants. Plants is having stress. So there is a friend of mine. She was working in agricultural department. Purdue has one of the best agricultural departments. So she was mentioning what her work was. They were putting sensors all over the ground and measuring the water content and temperature, water content, and humidity absorption of the soil. And later on, this work can be extended for measuring the minerals, manure level, biodiversity of the soil. I believe this is a good research area as well. There is a tech involvement in agriculture. Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah.
Hmm.
The because data is going to be so powerful in the
Hmm.
agricultural sector in the next few years, that
Yeah.
even small farmers, they are scaling their business to become
Hmm.
big just by leveraging data. So
Hmm.
separating like people who are just going with what the rest of the market is going,
Hmm.
and there are some farmers who are using that data from soil moisture and what is their minerals levels and their plot of land to like maximize
Hmm.
their yield. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think we need more research on that area for sure to
Yeah, means
fully.
like a lot of chemical scientists, a lot of sensor development technologists should enter into the picture and make this soil much more. So they'll be like, you can make it like I believe, entire pipeline. So there'll be a sensors all over the ground, data collection procedures, robot is in the picture, and when robot need to intervene, when farmer need to take care. So there should be a proper, like, I believe, a generalized pipeline, which is like, so that happens in the industry also, one, for example, one part robot is not able to intervene over there, then there is a supervisor who come across, so they make sure that they are able to maximize the production. So buying this strategy, having different kind of people involved, different kind of technologies involved, so even camera feed, sensor feed, there are all these things happening in the automotive industry. I believe there is much more need to be taken care of this fundamental level.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that.
Hmm.
So if you look at our main research agenda of our ERC, the
Hmm.
IoT for Ag, there's three
Hmm.
thrusts.
Hmm.
Thrust one, which we are under, we are just doing robotics and sensor. Thrust two is data communication. So
Okay.
not only collecting that data is important, but how you transmit that to like the robots to the inter-sensor communication.
Hmm.
And the challenge there, what I want to mention is if you think about like some places in India which doesn't have internet signal or doesn't have good GPS connectivity,
Hmm. Hmm.
how you transmit that data using a special sort of Wi-Fi, low
Hmm.
frequency, high range Wi-Fi transmission called LoRaWAN. That's
Hmm.
also another interesting technology that comes into play. And
Hmm.
lastly, Thrust 3 is
Hmm.
just data analysis. So like
Hmm.
post-processing that data and making sure all three thrusts are working with synergy to like
Yeah.
make sure the
Hmm.
mission is fulfilled.
Hmm. And one more thing I was reading about indoor farms. So a lot of, if you see right now, everything is like horizontal farming. So it takes up a huge amount of space. However, their concept of vertical farming, if you compare in terms of area it covers, as compared to the yields you can get, that is phenomenal. Like vertical farming is also growing for some of the thing, like for some of the plants is possible, like those who are like climbing plants, you can make them much more vertical. There could be some plants which looks like vertical but they are like bent towards backside. So they, however, means like bigger plants can be done vertical farming, like sugarcane. It doesn't make sense, like cantival coming out like this. So for some plants there is a higher probability we can do vertical farming. Those are like potatoes and all.
Oh, like so by vertical farming, are you referring to those huge walls where you plant like one on top of each other? Okay, okay,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
see.
yeah,
Yeah,
those are vertical farming. It have, you can have better spacing. And
right.
apart from that, one of the thing which I was reading is like from top you generally irrigate from top. So what happens, the remaining water which is generally
Uh,
lost while doing horizontal farming is keeps on coming down, keeps on coming down, and there is much more utilization of the water as well. So a lot of research is going on around that vertical farming, how to make it much more accessible and for more and more plants. So it's a very decent research area, I believe.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And I think it's also part of some, if you see the planned city that Abu Dhabi is doing,
Yeah.
they are also doing some concept of vertical farming, and
Hmm.
not only looks aesthetic, but it's also probably much more efficient than
Yeah.
horizontal farming.
That's true. That's a good thing to do. Apart from that, if you see even vertical farming, there are some of the factors which are involved in vertical farming is accessibility. So their robots can play a huge amount of role. When plants
Yeah,
is on the same level, you can have human also can pick up the thing. But however, if you are talking about 10-meter height, so there robots can play a very huge. It can climb. They could be like wall hanging robots. They can
yeah,
do picking and all. So robots also can involve a big, hand over there, I believe. Yeah.
yeah, for sure.
Hmm.
Yeah, you have big gantries. They can just localize. Okay, row
Hmm.
two, column five, like pick that
Yeah.
plan, just how they do it. And have you seen those parking lots in like
Yeah.
movies or some in Chicago?
Yeah.
The cars like placed like that. So like
Yeah.
this row, this column, which is pretty
Yeah,
cool.
yeah, that's vertical farming, as you mentioned. A lot of countries are putting a lot of effort, like UAE,
Yeah,
India, and India being 75% of the wheat of the entire world comes from Russia and Ukraine. Now that wheat is being controlled by some or other ways, or it got controlled due to this war. So a lot of effort these days are putting, a lot of pressure is putting on like food security, and food security is related to climate security or climate crisis. So as you mentioned exactly, like these days if you see summers are getting even hotter in Europe. When it was hotter
yeah,
in India, nobody cared about. When it happened to UK, those roads are getting melted in a way because they use more charcoal or charcoal, whatever, charcoal. So I think both of them are related in some or other ways, climate crisis and food security. Yeah.
yeah. Unless you can decouple the two, right? Like
Hmm.
unless you fully switch to indoor farms
Hmm.
where your climate is fully
Yeah.
controlled. But hey, that future is still not there yet, so we have to worry about our climate
Yeah.
and how that affects our agriculture.
Hmm. And one thing which I was also seeing in the indoor farms, so you can have more number of harvests a year as compared to ordinary land. So what they do is like they can have 15 different harvests a year. Means like growing potato, then growing tomato, then growing this, because you can control the environment. Just believe,
Yeah.
for example, some of the plants want much more colder, much more humidity as compared to other ones. So you can change the entire temperature of the entire, maybe a localized chamber where you are growing some plant. So you can have different temperature and humidity and all these things which plant depend upon, even soils, moisture, and soil quality adaptively, and you can grow more number of harvest a year as compared to a normal plant.
Absolutely.
Hmm.
Yeah, controlled conditions does play a key
Hmm.
key factor in controlling the environment. And
Hmm.
I'll give you an example. Have you seen those greenhouses by Herrick at Purdue?
Yeah, yeah, I've seen that.
Yeah, so only corn grows only in like May to end of July, right? So
Hmm.
if you want to do experiments, like when we have to do some data
Hmm.
collection
Hmm.
outside that season, those plants are not available. So what we do is we go to the greenhouse.
Hmm.
And if you go there, you will see that they have a huge box of switches, like a panel box. They have like lights, they have different fan speeds,
Ah,
they
yeah.
have like all kind of crazy stuff,
Yeah.
and they have plants like year round, like just
Hmm.
standing tall, like full year round. Like no matter when you go, you will
Hmm.
find plants. You can collect your data. So yeah, that is definitely the way to go. Controlled farming.
Yeah, one of the factor also which are involved in control farmer is the lack of ground water. So ground level water, which is like degrading with time, and surface water is also degrading with time, and with more pollutants, it's difficult to irrigate your crops. However, I have a lot of sense of respect to Israel, what they did to the drip technology.
Yeah.
It was lot and highlight where there is a pipeline and there is very small drip of water coming out of it. It's totally controlled by control system, and it's dips water, and a lot of plants they are able to, because they have limited amount of water, and how they utilize water even to have similar amount of yield as compared to India, which has huge amount of water resources. That was fantastic. There are other researches also in Israel, I believe.
Yeah, Israel, as you mentioned, is like leaps ahead. Like they are setting the benchmark of like, especially in terms of irrigation for
Hmm.
farming. So yeah, I was really fascinated by when they made that public announcement of how they, uh, you
Yeah.
know, just started growing like all these crops in the middle of a desert using
Yeah.
drip irrigation. It was
Yeah.
amazing.
It's amazing. And I was watching a documentary which was talking about after World War. They were showing after World War, what was the situation of Israel. It
Yeah.
was like a desert, and now if you see, it looks like similar to like where you come from. There's a lot of greenery because a lot of rain. I was
Hmm.
like, is it northeast, our northeast, which is like much more because there is a lot of rain, so you like very greenery over there. But I
Yeah.
believe, oh, this is Israel, like totally transformed. That I believe the sense of doing for their country, to make their country in those difficult situation. I believe it's their strength.
Yeah. Hey, necessity is the mother of invention, right?
Invention. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's true. So apart from that, I believe India also imported the drip technology from them, and
Hmm.
they have a good technology related to water purification, water desalination, which is like their key technology and drip technology. Recently, India, UAE, US, no, India, I2U2, Israel, India, UAE, and US signed a pact in which they call it Food Security Pact, which is like in during that period of time, I believe Israel's technology will be used, and US and UAE will fund some billion amount of dollar to have like center of excellences in agriculture in India as well. So it was related to, I think, some 2 billion amount of dollar. I think a lot of countries need to be collaborated in that way. What do you believe? Collaboration is much necessary, I believe.
I absolutely agree with that because if you see what few universities collaborating can make a huge impact in agriculture.
Hmm.
So imagine what when like countries, and especially when you're including a country like India, which
Hmm.
has the know-how for
Hmm.
like generations of farming,
Hmm.
and funding from countries like UAE and US. Like, I
Hmm.
think that would be a great venture. for
Yeah,
sure.
and since climate is also disrupting, like India, Pakistan, and all these sides, there is like heat waves coming every summers, which is like impacting the crop, and that happened together. Russia-Ukraine war and that heat wave, due to which India restricted it exports to other countries. However, there is one more difficult challenge which is going on right now. It's lack of groundwater, which I mentioned previously, as well as lack of groundwater is causing, because there is a report which I was reading in by 2030, India will lose 40% of its groundwater. There is a thing called
Yeah.
Global Food Security Index, and
Index, yeah.
India, right now, if you see, we have a huge amount of surplus of every food product. There was a time when we didn't have, but we ranked 68th in that out of 120 and 130 like that,
Hmm.
because this freshwater challenge. So that's what you said exactly. We'll need those robotics and tech into that, so that we should not over irrigate.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there is population challenge also. I think robotics is also doing a lot of stuff in pollution handling of rivers and water resources.
Yeah, you're right. So right now, I think even if we know that by 2050, like the population will we have to ramp up our production to keep up with the growing population. But as of right now, as of 2023, around what, like 30% of the food is wasted or something, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Like it's insane that 30% of food grown in US is just wasted.
yeah.
So, if we can factor that in as well and grow only as much that the people will be consuming and not minimize food wastage, and that way you're minimizing irrigation too, right? So, and in the long run, you will save some water because you're minimizing food waste and only optimizing the amount of yield that is needed as of right now, um, for feeding the population. Like, why have it wasted?
What about means, like, I don't know much about US. How do they do irrigation? Does they use river water or groundwater?
Yeah, so it's a mix of both, I believe. Um,
Okay.
it's not as heavily groundwater dependent as India is because you can just have pipeline transmit water like river water from because the pipeline structure is more robust in the US than India, so we are not directly like depending on the groundwater, but it's also used from time to time that I
I
know.
believe there are some plans also going in India where they are doing so. The land around Ganga
Yeah.
acts as a very fertile land, and when it is like becoming polluted, so there are some research going on where they deploy robotics, which is like a free floating surface to detect what is the quality of water. I believe. Did you hear this news?
I've seen like an article on it that they're using that the group of robots to uh, some sensors that they put in the
Yeah,
water.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
That's true. That's true. And Russia and China controls 16% and 12%, which is more than like 30%, and they, which is like anti-US allies or whatever you say, they control 1/5. Russia itself control 1/5, and the entire Russian and allies and all these people controls nearly 40 to 50% of the entire fertilizers as well. So that
Mm,
is a challenge, I believe, in this, global crisis of war and all. These
yeah.
things are also hampered, and developing countries has to bear the cost actually, because
Yeah.
where there is a surplus, they don't care about it. But they should be much. What is the objective of UN and having these fights again and again? And there is a lot of impact of Russia-Ukraine war. Since you drive, you have a much more understanding of gas prices. Yeah,
Yeah, gas prices were crazy just like few months ago. It was
yeah.
like through the roof. Now they're coming down, but luckily, uh,
Do you know about? So a lot of people mentions the amount of groundwater which is used just for agriculture is only around 15%, and lot of water is being wasted in related to animal farms and meat production. Okay, so a lot of people say if you go vegetarian. So it will be much more sustainable. But in that direction, I believe, did you heard about lab grown meats?
Yeah, I've seen those. The Impossible, those brands, they're coming out with like lab grown meat.
Yeah.
There's some like 3D printed meat too. Have you heard
Yeah,
about
yeah,
it?
yeah.
Yeah.
And they were mentioning like it has more nutrients than a
Yeah.
real, I believe, real meat, and it has a similar taste. For example, that is a thought experiment we can have. Since you eat chicken, just assume you eat chicken.
Hmm.
I gave you two different chickens, which is one is lab grown, one is real chicken. I don't tell you, okay? And then you start eating. Then after that, I tell you it was lab grown and it was that. Both taste the same. So what will be your thing? Which one you would choose for the next time?
I would probably stick with the non-lab grown, but if you show me enough data that, hey, you have
Hmm.
to give up the poultry farming
Hmm.
and stick with lab grown meat for the rest of your life, if you give me enough data and you convince me that, then I'll be like, okay, sure, if they
Well,
taste the same.
but a lot of vegetarians, you know, they don't believe in lab-grown meats. They say this is just shit and shit talking, and even that has more amount of nutrients and it tastes the same or better. They won't switch. Means like
Yeah.
conventional way of eating animals. I think which is
Hmm.
like impacting sustainability in some or other ways.
Yeah, it's a little bit of cultural thing too. Like if you see,
Hmm.
compared to India, a lot more people in the US are non-vegetarian. So this habit, although
Hmm.
like veganism and like going sustainable diet is becoming more and more popular, but
Hmm.
Americans love their hot dogs and burgers. So
Yeah.
there's no going away.
Hmm.
And that is true that if you compare with like high water requirement crops like wheat and rice,
Hmm.
like farming chicken or any
Hmm.
other animal requires 10 times more water. So that is true. You have an advantage over there by switching vegan. You're reducing water usage. But then again, it comes down to personal preferences and how people's mindset. That you can't be like preach to everyone, hey, become vegan right away. Like that's not possible. So
When
yeah.
lot of people didn't take the vaccine itself, even in this COVID crisis, so you can't say means like people will come to a common platform to have a sustainable diet and all. It depends on, since it is democracy, people have their own chance. Maybe their beliefs may change. I believe everybody should have belief which is adjustable according to the data with current situation. There is nothing called conventional way or best way. It's like adaptability. Human are the best adaptable, one of the best adaptable creatures available on earth, so we
Hmm.
need to stick to that.
No, yeah, you put it in the best way possible. Like
Yeah.
as engineers, as scientists,
Hmm.
as policymakers, whatever we may be, the
Hmm.
best we can do is just give people the data,
Hmm.
give them the choice, and teach them, like give
Yeah.
them knowledge that if you do this, this happens. If you do this, that happens. Then it's up to
Yes,
them
yes, yes,
on
yes.
what they want to do.
And one more thing which is like right now in popular, which I was mentioning related to the soil. Do you know a lot of people what they are doing is like they are having plants which doesn't need soil. They just grow on water. Means like they have reduced the amount of soil required to grow the crops. I
Oh,
believe. Yeah. Means like there are some fruits. I know means like a lot of fruits if you see they don't need
hmm.
soil as such, but they have reduced the amount of soil required for some of the plant, and the water they are using is also recycled. So that is
Right.
happening in the indoor farming community, and they are doing some incredible work. Means like if you see that videos, those are amazing. It looks like you are into some spacecraft or somewhere,
Yeah.
something like that. Yeah,
Yeah, I would love to see a actual lab tour of
actual. Yeah,
such
we have to
vertical
find
farming.
some near. There may be a one in Chicago because Chicago is a big city or
Maybe,
something.
yeah,
Yeah.
maybe.
And do you know recently, what do you think about Bill Gates' involvement from tech to more vaccine and agriculture?
Yeah, I think he was doing a tour of India, right? Like a few
Yeah,
weeks back.
yeah.
Or when was it again?
I think he's investing into agriculture and vaccine a lot these days. But the trip which he had to India recently was like a month back or
Yeah,
15 days back, something like that. But
something
it
like
was
that.
recent.
Yeah, I was watching that video, and
Hmm.
I mean, it's good that it shows like someone who is also involved with other humanitarian work is taking interest in agriculture. So that
Yeah.
definitely an inspiration for other, business owners
Hmm.
to like shift their mindset towards investing in agriculture.
Yeah,
So I
that's
think he's setting a good example.
And apart from in sustainable global security, food security, sustainable farming, there is one thing which is India putting its effort on. Since see, there is a lot of investment required when you build robots, when you build indoor farms. However, India is playing it safe, much more safer, but much more effective, I believe. So this is called. There are some foods which are called superfoods. These are drought resistant, drought resistant and what you call climate friendly sort of. So they grow even in different kind of fluctuable fluctuations of the weather also. So one of them is millet. We call it bajra.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Bajra,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, you may have heard that. So
Hmm.
bajra. So bajra requires less water and able to less water means like one third of the water of wheat and rice,
Yeah.
and it grows similarly and have more harvest, and even it is resistant to more pesticide, which you mentioned in the previous conversation about pesticide detection, oh sorry, this disease detection. It is more protected by pesticides, and it is more in that term. It on a particular land it can have more harvest in terms of kgs. So India is even recently, United Nations had decided 2023 as the international millet year
Oh, okay.
because of India's contribution in the millet. And Orissa is the state which is like topmost in doing millet farming because they are incentivizing farmers in that direction.
Right.
I think incentivizing plays a very important role in giving farmer a motivation to bring those crops into the picture.
Yeah, and sticking with them long term, and
Mhm.
another thing that UK is doing, I think, is they moved to a lot of farmers in the UK are moving to quinoa farming. You know what quinoa is?
No, 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 no.
So it's like that. It's like a breakfast type of thing. It's like similar to millets in terms of like characteristics where it doesn't require as much water, and
Mm.
it's very healthy too. So it
Mm.
has much more nutrients than like traditional rice or wheat,
Okay, okay, okay.
and I think that's UK's version of millets. Um,
Yeah, and
yeah.
it's as tasty as wheat because wheat. I'm saying wheat. Okay, let me be specific. Okay, not weed. Okay, wheat. And I believe when he came, Bill Gates came, and he even in the front of media, he made a millet patty also, which was as tasty
Mm,
in the front of
yeah.
Smriti Irani, which I don't know if she is handling the food ministry or not, but he made a those because India is doing a lot. There is an agriculture institute in Pusa which is putting a lot of effort to grow millet, and they have shown, they have written some papers, and even they are able to have 25% more yield of some sort of
Wow.
wheats. So millets they are doing fantastic, but
Hmm.
wheat, chickpeas. So even in US and Germany there is a lot of research on chickpeas. So chickpeas is also a superfood. Okay, they are
Yeah.
resistant to, and they grow in less. Germany is doing an incredible research in that. So he came and he has seen, and he has even Bill Gates notes which he writes on LinkedIn and all. That was fantastic on his website. He writes. So he was saying India is doing incredible work towards this direction. Soon, within 5 years, we will be like one of the major exporter of millet. So that would be
Absolutely.
good.
Yeah.
We should also start cooking some millet food, millet
Yeah. Let's
related
do it
food.
sometime. Let's get together and make some millets.
Yeah, and one of the thing is like in India, a lot of people already were eating bajra ki roti and all these things, and they use means like it was a normal staple for that. A lot of
Yeah.
villages and all, so we have to learn those things. It may be
But in
available on
cities
YouTube.
though, like it's hard, right? Like I don't
Yeah,
think I've seen that much.
no, no, you won't find it. Yeah,
Yeah.
and in Germany, these people. are also growing. I believe what you call it. What is that? That leaves they put in the between the sandwich, the bigger leaf. I don't know.
Let it
Lentils, lettuce.
lettuce.
I
Yeah, yeah,
can confuse between lentils and lettuce. Lettuce. Yeah,
yeah,
that is
yeah.
also I think
One of the
lettuce.
superfoods. Yeah.
Yeah, and one of the factor what they're doing is like a lot of people. I was watching this video where they were mentioning about they are growing lettuce but in sea. So there are a lot of sea
Oh.
algae type of plants which doesn't need soil, okay, which
Mm-hmm.
just survive on seawater, and these are like seaweed. They say seaweed. So what they do, you know that?
Yeah, yeah. So seaweed is a very popular Japanese. It's very used
Yeah.
like in Japanese cuisine.
You see, in Eastern culture, if you see in Taiwan, Japan, China, a lot of
Yeah,
people use that,
use seaweed.
but
Yeah,
it's not very popular in, I believe, in Western world. So what
true.
they are doing, how they are doing it, actually Japan and all these people see the natural, extract out the natural stuff. What they are doing, so they are putting ropes inside the sea, and
Mm-hmm.
those seaweeds grows on that, and they then remove it, and it is as tasty as there are companies startups related to that direction as
Nice.
well. Yeah,
I mean,
and
there
when
you
you,
go.
yeah.
You have one avenue for underwater robotics, right? To like help you
Yeah,
with seaweed farming.
yeah, that's true. Means like underwater robotics to remove
Yeah,
these seaweeds because it could be as challenging as because you have to go in boat because I see those people goes in boat and they extract out. It is a time taking because it's like removing from road requires
yeah,
stability of the boat as well as strength. Yeah, robot can definitely play a role. You have a lot of job opportunities.
yep.
Congratulations, you are hired.
I mean, that's also a good aspect you pointed out that people think, oh, robots taking over, we're gonna become jobless in the next few
Yeah,
years. But
yeah,
that's not necessarily the case, right? Like robots are sometimes making more jobs
yeah.
by performing those jobs that
And
humans won't
quality of
otherwise.
jobs also. Quality of
Exactly.
jobs. You are shifting more from automated type of job, means like repetitive task, to more of a quality task and much more
Yeah,
white collar jobs. So
exactly.
robots, apart from if you see, definitely like when they'll be like uh, self-driving cars, so definitely there'll be a challenge to those people who have a regular income from taxi driving, but the nature of job will change because a lot of people now enter into AI community, a lot of people enters into more technical jobs, so the nature of jobs are becoming from non-technical to more of a technical. So that is much better, I believe, means like for the quality of life everybody has. So one of the factor which I believe, they are robots which are used to clean the sewage tanks also.
Yeah.
Yeah, means like a lot of research goes in that direction because it's like so mushy, and in India, a lot of people do that. That is very, you have increased the quality of their job. That guy will be later on use, those, I believe, remote to operate those robots. But yeah, means like things are changing, evolving.
I mean, you've seen those Boston Dynamics robotics, right? Robots, right?
Yeah.
Those cheetahs. So
Hmm.
they're taking it to like, non-functional nuclear power plants where there's still some radioactive material. Like it's a health hazard for humans to go in. So robots are doing an amazing job there by like, doing a site survey and all kind of stuff. Like, one of my past projects in my lab was using
Hmm.
drones to do like, post-disaster rubble
Hmm.
analysis.
Okay.
So where, the disaster relief folks, it's too
Hmm.
risky for them. So we were developing drones that can, not only do a survey, but also interact with the environment. Like our
Oh.
drone, we did some experiments of where our
Hmm.
drone could like open doors.
Hmm.
It could open like fuse boxes to like shut off electricity,
Hmm.
uh, climb up to like, those tall electricity poles.
Hmm.
So robots will not only eliminate those tedious jobs, but also
Hmm.
those dangerous jobs that which in line you referred to, like the sewage
Yeah.
tank cleaning.
Yeah, that's true. Means like robotics has much more. Once see, if there are no more number of robots, it means robot manufacturing requires components, and component will be manufactured by some startups, and you need operators for those kind of robots. You need manufacturing new plants for having more components to make those robots. So definitely, proportionally, the number of jobs will increase as they are dying, I believe. Yeah. So that is
Yeah,
amazing. I believe tech. can revolutionize agriculture, climatic, the impact of climate on the agriculture, because it's so fundamental to us. Yeah.
No, yeah, it is a very life-saving technology
Hmm.
that once robots step in, like it's
Hmm.
not fully integrated, what I can say
Hmm.
from my current experience. Like you have robots, but in the field who are helping, like doing a tremendous job. But
Hmm.
just think about a future where robots are integrated into the lifeline of farming. That would be
Yeah.
an amazing future I would want to live in.
Yeah. Then more people will get more time to understand themselves and to live a more easier life. I believe more like getting more going, that when people's job reduces, they have to do more of like 5 or 10 minutes of job, then they reflect back inside, and
Yeah,
they understand the human nature, and it's much
yeah,
more, the society will become much more collaborative, instead of having this monkey brain of, okay, jealousy factor, okay, meri job chun li, my job is gone, or something like that. It will be like
yeah.
much more socialist, which much more, everybody will be having much more essence of best lifestyle and much more equality, I believe, with
Hmm.
time. And one thing which I was mentioning about I2U2, which is a collaboration of 4 different countries, so they are also investing a lot on climate thing. So that is like putting more, because however agriculture and climate are related in some or other ways. So you have to control the use of CO2 producing cars. So a lot of investment recently, this Bill Gates, when he drive a tuk-tuk which is properly zero emission electric, so that is like autos. Yeah. And a lot of funding are also going in renewable hybrid resource sources, and a lot of people in India are also working on ethanol blending, that
Hmm.
adding some sort of, so Brazil is the top one in that. So they are doing, right now we are at, I think, 18% of ethanol blending or some number with, I think, 20% of ethanol blending into petrol. However, Brazil is much higher, like 30, 35, something of that number. So it doesn't reduce the calorific value, but there is less unburned carbon.
Emissions,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
unburned hydrocarbons.
Hmm.
Uh, but yeah, this is a transition phase. Like,
Hmm.
we're switching from fully internal combustion to like, hybrid, and then there's EV, full EV. So that we
Hmm.
are in the transition period for sure. But
Hmm.
um, yeah, let's see where this takes us, right? Like, ultimate goal is full EV.
Yeah,
Like, we can't deny it, but
yeah.
too bad
Let
for the petrol heads like us, right? Who like our gas guzzling cars, but
Yeah.
still, like, the future is EV. We can't deny that.
And one more thing about, like, in the end, if we summarize, so there are something like robots, data analysis, technology plays a very important role. Indoor farming, vertical
Hmm.
farming, limited amount of soil, limited amount of, water, nourishing the soil, and other factors like controlling the climate, having less, doing ethanol blending, using electric vehicles more, and these things, and definitely controlling groundwater, reducing water population pollution. These are the main, I believe, the things which we have covered in this talk. And that was an
Yeah.
amazing, talk with you. I enjoyed it.
Likewise.
Yeah,
Yep.
I enjoyed it a lot, learned a lot from you. For such amazing podcast and for more number of guests, I want you to support me by subscribing to this channel. See you. Bye bye.